Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity for all of us to be here and talk about a very topical subject about data as a competitive asset. In the past, we have seen different kinds of assets organizations have in terms of investments in building infrastructure, in terms of people, in terms of supply chain and distribution systems, in terms of multiple other things, which were sources of strategic competitive advantage. But for the first time, we are now talking about data as a source of sustained competitive advantage. And it's also very unique because that is one thing which may not necessarily be that easily copied by your competition as well. So while other assets can still be copied to an extent or still can be replicated to an extent, but the insights which you derive from your own data about your own business can be something which is very, very unique. In the past, it was difficult for us to do because the technology wasn't there to store so much of data. The ability to get insights out from the data was not easily available, or the costs were a little more prohibitive, or the skills were not available. But now we have seen that a lot of democratization has happened in the sense that it is significantly easier now for people to use the data and get the insights, and not just get the insights, but also get the decisions made available, which can then be actioned upon. So we are talking about actionability of the information as well. So with that kind of a background, I'm joined with a very esteemed set of panelists here this afternoon with me. So and with a very diverse kind of a background as well, right? You know, you have organizations from the very, very traditional brick and mortar to banking and financial services, and people in the panel also have a very diverse experience across multiple organizations. So I'm sure this will be a fairly interesting conversation, and maybe I'll probably make it easier by going in this way, so that it's also a little easier, and for the audience to kind of look at the names and also kind of relate as well. So so Raj, I'm going to come to you first. And retail has always been a tough industry, right? I mean, there are competitive pressures. The Indian customer is also not that easy to manage in many ways. But you have been running a very, very successful brand and very, very successful strategy. Would be keen to understand from you whether data has actually played a role, and what role has it played in terms of furthering your own strategy, or looking at some additional value which you can get either from a customer perspective, or from a logistics perspective, or from any other perspective which you can think of.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for patiently also coming here to listen to us. My name is Rajgopal Nayak. I work as the CTO, CISO, and CDPO at Metro Brands. We are a footwear retailer operating 850 stores across the country under close to 10 brand names. Now, data has always been pivotal as far as decision making is concerned, right? And continues to do so in its various avatars across different departments, right? If you look at retail, and let's say offline retail, one of the main metrics that one needs to, across retailers monitor is typically, one is what is the per store profitability, right? And the second is the same store growth, right? Same store growth typically is what the analysts also look to see, whether it's not just expansion that is getting you, more revenue, but that your existing infrastructure is also working as per plan or improving. Now, data plays a very important role in tracking all of this. All retailers have enough data, but the efficiency and the incisiveness with which this data is analyzed, right, and actioned upon is the most important thing that differentiates good retailers, or retailers who sustain themselves through thick and thin, right? That being said, brand recall, customer experience are also very important items over there. Each of them have their own data sets, right? Let's take customer experience. Actually, the customer experience starts not just when the person is within your store or within your digital infrastructure like your website. It actually starts from when they start thinking about buying a particular product, right? Do you analyze, you know, or do you make use of every business opportunity? Do you track these business opportunity to try and convey and convince your potential customer to actually be your customer? And more importantly, once the sale or the service has been completed, how do you ensure you leverage data for the post sales journey, be it service, warranty, claims, returns, or even upsell and cross sell, right? Data plays an extremely important role, and a retailer who is able to manage the continuum of data across all business touch points is the one that will be, which will have a higher probability of success. Let me put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raj. And I think the important thing which I kind of picked up from what you said was the fact that you are looking at an end to end journey or a continuum, and then trying to see where data or insights from the data will add value at every touch point or at every place in that entire continuum from end to end. So, in that spirit, let me go to Virendra. You are a data scientist. So it's pretty much your forte in terms of looking at the data and trying to find out insights, patterns, anomalies from the data. So how would you see this particular area which has evolved, where you're looking at data as a competitive asset in the context of some insightful use cases which can be applied in organizations for delivering business outcomes?
So, hello everyone, good afternoon. Data as competitive assets. So, please understand data is something, science comes much later. First, we have to figure out how we can keep our data and how well it is, put in our systems. For example, let's say I have to calculate the engagement score of my customer. I am a mobile app. I can touch point customer with multiple way. Like I can send push notification, I can send SMS, I can call them, right? But if I am not able to collate all those data, and if I am not able to understand how my engagement score is for a particular customer, then it becomes a problem. So this is where to make data as an asset, we have to create a unified data sets where I have information about the customer at single place. Then after I can analyze the data and create some pattern, some value. So with the evolving space, now a lot of people are talking about hyper personalization. So in this space, if I want to know about customer, suddenly a traffic got increased in my mobile app. Which kind of people have come, using what influenced them to come over my app, what activity they have done. All this can be understood when we have right quality data saved in our data lake or in our data structure which we have defined. So if I see pattern evolve, we can derive a lot of pattern, but now it's more important how quickly you can derive the pattern. Because see, if I come to know something happened 3 week back because of this region, I took, let's say, 3 4 days to analyze it. Maybe I have lost the opportunity, right? So the kind of algorithms are getting involved. Those algorithms are mainly because we have good computing power. So if we are using simple, analysis, and if we can quickly deliver it and it can be applied in next 2 3 hours, that will have more value and you will have more competitive advantage versus you are doing very high end algorithm which is taking 2 3 days, maybe a week to train, and then you are coming out with some value. So that may not be that useful. So now I believe the right quality data and the speed of calculation or computing power is more coming as a competitive advantage, because see, algorithms are not going to change much, or maybe data scientists will know the similar set of algorithm which is going to be across the industry. It's more about how well you are prioritizing your data and how quickly you are deriving the insights.
That's a very important thing which you said, is that algorithms are going to get commoditized. Everybody will have access to all kinds of algorithms. So what is going to be the differentiator is, in your context, how are you using your data to get that insight and quickly enough? Now, because we are talking about this point of being fast, and not taking a lot of time to unlock the value, the role of tools and technologies become very important. Because without the tools, we are literally helpless. We're talking about terabytes and petabytes of data, particularly from a banking perspective, right? I mean, there we have a huge quantity of data, particularly if we're talking about retail banking for sure. So, in that context, what is also going to be important is what kind of tools and what has been the evolution of the technology. We are talking about cloud, we're talking about multiple things in this context. So, maybe my next question will be to you, Nirav, from your perspective and also from a banking sector perspective. How would you see the role of tools and technologies playing a very critical enabling factor for extracting these insights in a timely manner to be actioned upon?
Hi everyone. Audible. So myself is Nirav Dalal. Not only from the banking industry as you explained. So I have an experience of not only in banking into the e-commerce domain, at the same time in gaming domain, at the same time in entertainment also like Hangama Music and everywhere. So if you say the data is utmost important part of all the organizations where you work with, but in terms of the tools, technologies, and the work the industry is working today towards that AI and ML. So depending upon your use cases where you are working, the tools of course play an important role over there. So if if you are looking at your customers to personalize, send an SMS or push notification you mentioned, or you can say it's an in-app message. So there are multiple various tools which work on your data and tell you that what kind of personalized message you should send and what on what particular time. So let's say if you are into the mall and if you are buying some stuff over there, and sometimes you might get there you have 10% off on lifestyle. So how do you come to this suddenly I'm on a mall and I'm getting this push notification in real time? So that's all about your predictive analytics where your data works inside or back at the back end and you carry out the tool. So apart from this tool, you also have a data analytics tool or data prediction tools where itself it helps to understand the customer behavior basis the behavioral insights. So if you know how your exactly customer is moving from one segment to another segment, you can use that particular tool in terms of sending them WhatsApp or RCS message, which is RCS message is nowadays very famous. So in terms of AI and ML, of course you have chatbots where customer chats bot and they get their answers. So there are many techniques in terms of storing the data. You can have Tableau as a stored data where you can do insight of your data and then you connect to the marketing automation tool and where you can send the communication. So Tableau is there. There are many other tools which brings and talks about how your data is right now livid on the system and how you can take it from one end to another end to the customer, so that customer communication is very personalized and helpful to do the next actionable which we want.
No, perfect. I think what is very critical from this takeaway from what Nirav said is the next best action. What is the next action we need to take in terms of ensuring that I'm able to retain the customer, I'm able to do that cross selling, I'm able to keep that customer happy with me, and that's actually going to add to my top line and my bottom line. Um, uh, of course, the world of data and analytics used to be the world of techies in the past. You would have very esoteric statisticians and mathematicians and coders who used to work day in and day out, and it used to be a very rarefied kind of a field in the past, but not anymore. With the advent of your chat gpt or other things, it's pretty much quite easy for anybody to see what is really the power of an AI or a Gen AI, and it has really reached from a very techie kind of an environment to the boardrooms very, very quickly. If I see the evolution of analytics in the last 1.5 years, what that has resulted in is that boards, particularly the MDs and CEOs and people who are truly the decision makers in the organization, have realized now the importance where the value from the data can be unlocked. without having to necessarily get lost in the technicalities of how it needs to be done. So we're very pleased to have Jasmit in our panel here today. And I'm so very happy that we have a diversity in the group as well. But here we have someone who has really been at the coalface in terms of how you deal with your customers on a day in and day out basis. And what could be a better endorsement than you talking about the use of analytics in terms of furthering your business from a customer lens. So would be great to hear your perspectives, Jasmeet.
Firstly, good afternoon to all of you. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Jasmit Tibb. Very, very fortunate to be the brand owner of Tibbs Frankies. For us, since I was asked to speak in this and that came as a surprise to me. Then my team told me that, sir, you are doing this day in, day out. I said, oh, really? Okay, fine. See, for us, data has been, my dad invented the word Frankie, so we've been in this business for 53 years. So for us, data crunching was from day one. But that time it was called word of mouth. It was not called data. It started being called data of late. What does data do for us? Data for us in the QSR industry is leading to hyper-personalization. What do I mean by that? It's helping us analyze ordering habits, location preferences, and various preferences which of late have developed because of the invent of social media. We are also looking at, and there is an existing chain, it's my peer, I'm sorry, I can't name it. They've already gone into AI using cameras at their ordering stations, which determine the habits of a consumer, which determine what would the consumer want as regards to pricing also. And that really is going to make a big breakthrough for us because today, there is no patience in anything. Like I always joke with my entire team when I have the chairman's message to my entire team in India, is that today everybody's living in a WhatsApp age. I mean, you talk about it and you have to have an answer. That's why I think ChatGPT and all the other stuff are doing well. But I strongly believe that with the advent of data, it also requires data crunching. I think sometimes it's just like, you have your data as being stored, but nobody gets down to crunching it because it becomes about how many CRMs have you done in a day and stuff like that. Whereas for us, it's all about reaching people's hearts. I think if you ask me for Tibbs, data we are using as an enabler to reach people's hearts through their brains. Earlier we used to do dil se dil ka connection, bhaiya achhi Frankie de di, and we are in people's hearts. Now I get people who, I see my team running around that, sir, in this event we did this, in this event we did this. We are blessed to cater all the major events which are happening right now, all the major shows which are happening. So now we know which show has done well. Now we know which genre of people eat. Now let me go one step further. India as a market has different diaspora of people everywhere. I can't give the same taste what I give in Mumbai. I have to alter some part of it for Andhra, for Tamil Nadu, for Goa, for Punjab, for that. So for us, data becomes very critical even in recipe generation. For us, it is breaking down of every recipe to the core to see what palate is being suited in different parts of the country, or in the UK, or in Dubai where we are. For us, analyzing the habits, analyzing what the consumer wants. Like for us, in hospitality, we always call them guests. It's never the consumer. Amit, I think you would agree with me. So, that's Dr. Amit. He's my junior from IHM. So what we're trying to do in the QSR industry is get down to effective data collection and effective data crunching. But with all this, we also are very critical and very, very imposing when it comes to me. I'm sorry to use that word. That I don't want any of my guests being over-surveilled. Nobody should feel threatened in their privacy when they come to any of a Tibb store across the country and feel that, they've got too much data on me. See, because then that becomes moral responsibility for my team, my IT team, to make sure there's privacy, to make sure there's cybersecurity, to make sure everybody doesn't ever feel cheated from a brand which has now been declared one of India's traditional QSRs. So we have to be very careful there. So for us, in short, I don't want to take much of your time, we are basically enjoying the hyper-personalization of data.
That's absolutely fantastic, Jasmeet, the way you articulated, and I kind of picked up a couple of things. One was the ability to collect the data and crunch the data. That's very critical and important. Otherwise, we are not really talking about anything. And secondly, which is extremely important, is to make the other person feel comfortable about what they're sharing about their data. Otherwise, there could be a bit of a mistrust and a challenge. In fact, I can recall and I would like to recount one example in this context. I was having a discussion with a CEO of a retail organization. I'll not name the organization, and I was going with my traditional stuff that you collect the data, you segment the data, and this and all that. He just looked at me and he said that no, I don't want to collect data about my customers, and I was a little surprised. I said, why? He said, no, no, for me every customer is same, and I would rather focus on improving my logistics, reduce my cost, increase my availability, and be equal to everybody rather than being segmented. Now, that's one positioning. And he says that, well, that saves me from storing a lot of data about my customers. Now, that's a contrarian point of view from what we discussed, but it actually brings up a very important aspect, for which, I would kind of go to Gurjodh, that what are some of those things or guardrails we need to keep in the back of our mind, uh, particularly related to data protection, particularly related to how you're handling the data, particularly related to the fact that, well, how are you taking care of that asset? We are talking data as an asset, but we also have to take care and ensure that it is managed as an asset. So any perspectives from your side will be very helpful, because you're also part of a very regulated industry. There is a bit of an overarching thing as well, which might be very specific in your industry. So anything you would like to share from the way we should handle the data, that will be very helpful.
Thank you. I'm Gurjodh. I run Tide, which is a financial platform for small and medium businesses. We are a UK headquartered company, market leaders in this space in UK. We have around 10% market share in the UK, and India is our second market, and we have around 500,000 SMEs on our platform. Just from data privacy standpoint, we have a new law on personal data, and but even before that, we had very clear laws on payments data. Now, what we need to ensure, and financial services is a regulated industry. But more than the laws and regulation, what, as per our experience, has worked or works well is two things. One, of course, the law has to be followed, but it has to be followed in the spirit. So, for example, the law allows you to take, say, consent and then use the data, right? But mostly, if you see, the consent is taken as part of auto tick.tick TNCs, which is a 20-page document. None of us read it, right? So, the spirit of law is that if you need to process that data, say locally or outside India as a geography, there has to be a very strong reason for it. It has to be linked to the end consumer value that you bring to the table. So hence, it has to be followed in spirit, not just in terms of the way it is written. Because if the spirit is not followed, today or tomorrow, what happens is the compliance, the law catches up with you. That's one. Second is, the end consumer needs to understand what value we are trying to bring out, for them using their personal data, because ultimately it is their data. So, a few examples which we were just, hearing. One about, you being in a mall and Lifestyle sending you that message. Now, we just need to, in such examples, or, our colleague here was sharing about a competitor where they are through camera collecting data of a person on a counter. Now, does a consumer need that help, or is it more for your business to use that data in a gray zone and then make a business proposition around it? So I think those are some ethical and spirit questions which we need to solve for as we use data for bringing better experiences to the consumer. So I think it's a lot about transparency. Data has to be used to bring in more efficiency, do better business, etc. But it also has to be a lot about following the right value system, transparency, and follow things in spirit. So I think that's what works for the financial industry, and whoever doesn't follow it in the long run, it becomes a problem from a regulation standpoint, from a brand standpoint. Like consumers or users never trust their money with somebody where they feel that there's been some challenge from a compliance standpoint, etc. So hence handling this data is pretty important in our industry from all these perspectives.
Thank you, Gurjot. I think that's the reality check which we all need to have, because it has to be done within the framework of not just the rules and regulations, but also in terms of the ethics and how you build trust with your key stakeholders, not just customers, but also other stakeholders which you have in the organization. I would now come back to Jagdish. You are a veteran. You have been in this industry for a long time, and you have used and seen the power of data all through your career. Would be great to hear from you the perspectives from an industry side, from a banking perspective. What is it that organizations are really doing? And also, if you can throw some light in terms of where organizations actually go wrong in terms of not being able to use the data as a source of competitive advantage.
Hi everyone, thanks very much for having me on this panel. So the banking industry and services industry, of course, pretty much only runs on data, and they have been using it in different ways, sometimes successfully, sometimes less successfully, and sometimes even wrongfully in many ways, and you all know about that. So the fundamental thing about any person when you deal with financial services is that that's perhaps the most sensitive, apart from maybe personal healthcare or whatever, data that you're dealing with. It's the most informative because you know exactly what the person is doing, because you know what he's buying, where he's going, and what he's doing. Everything's visible through just by looking at the financial transactions. And at the same time, where do you draw the line? And make sure that you don't cross the line. You don't just do sort of eavesdropping or snooping into too much of personal detail without taking proper consents. That's been the dilemma of the industry almost all the time. Now, the other area, of course, where data has been heavily used for in financial services industry is fraud checks, especially in the digital age. Like the saying goes, in the old age of physical branch banking, if there was the old-fashioned bank robbery, while that's an unfortunate incident, the only silver lining in that incident could be that if the people, the ones that caused the robbery are around the area, in the vicinity of the area, there's a half chance you could catch them and perhaps recover those big boxes of cash that was stolen. But if the same haste happens digitally, the money just vaporizes, just disappears. There's no way there's no way you're going to get back anything. So that's the reason why the fraud protection is extremely critical. So typically, all of us use mobile apps, right? Now, I do a payment transaction just now, and there's a transaction recorded on my mobile number. And there is a second payment transaction in the next 15 minutes, again on my mobile number. Now, we trace back the second transaction to originating from Delhi. Straight away, it means that one of the two transactions is wrong, because there's no way that my mobile can physically travel from here to Delhi in 15 minutes. So one of the two transactions is wrong, and it has to be stopped. Now I need additional data to figure out which one is right and which is wrong. I have additional data to say, okay, I am here in Andheri in Mumbai, Okay, I'm not in Delhi by virtue of other pieces of data to then figure out that my second transaction needs to be stopped because that's a wrong one. That's a fraudulent one. Okay, so that kind of usage of data, whether it is behavioral data, geospatial data, or all forms of data, is very critical, very prevalent in the industry, and that's very essential. Where we go wrong is when we don't know how to look at behavioral patterns correctly. I mean, I have had experiences, I'm sure most of you have had, like I just pay my car insurance and then I get 15 offers for car insurance. That's the most ridiculous thing, right? I just did my insurance, which means I'm not going to do insurance for the car for the next 1 year. Don't give me a car insurance offer for the next 11 months. Okay, that's the last thing I want for the next row. I'm done for that. So it can't just be a repetitive pattern. Because I did insurance today, I'll give you another insurance offer tomorrow. It's irrelevant at this point in time. So that kind of behavioral analysis sometimes goes wrong or gets missing, and then data goes all over the place. And the third, of course, my colleague just mentioned about consent. Of course, there's something called as a consent architecture that's been defined by RBI. It's not just a tick box anymore. You can't share it on the basis of that. A consent object says what data the customer is willing to share. They have to know for what purpose, with whom, for what duration, what frequency, etc. There are about 8 or 10 attributes to that object, and that together constitute what's called as a consent. So people that work with areas like account aggregator who are completely into the space will be aware of data consent objects. But within the span of that, data can be used, but it has to be used very, very judiciously and carefully. That's really the broad strokes thing.
I think that's extremely helpful. I think what you really touched upon was context is so very important when you are trying to find a value from the data, and it is all about a deeper understanding of the domain and the business, which becomes important as opposed to just looking for some patterns and looking for some trends just from a data. Of course, that is important, but the critical aspect of whether it adds value is whether you have married that in the context of what you're doing from a business perspective. And that is where the marriage of technology, data, and business needs to come together in order to realize this holy grail of using data as an asset, which we all keep talking about ad nauseum. So I think we have just got some more time, but I don't think we'll have a time to go through another round. So, but just at the very end, if somebody from an audience has any question, then we'll be happy to take it up. Maybe one or two questions, and then we can potentially, wrap it up. So any questions from the audience? Anybody would like to ask a question? Thank you.
Sir, this is Ramesh Bhojwani from Mehta and Vakil. We had a wonderful, enlightening session having varied participants from varied industries in this, you can say, a conclave on data. It was very encouraging, very helpful, and the highlight was how data is ensuring the environment of business growth in manifold way if used correctly. Maybe metro brands, maybe Tibbs Frankie, maybe even a banker. Data is required everywhere if you want to grow correctly, rightly, and methodically. The thought which came to me, in today's world, digital world, data about every actually consumer is available for a throwaway price. And the problem as a result of this is we keep getting spam calls, spam reports, and from various aspects. Maybe it is insurance, maybe it is equity investments, maybe it is mostly I am getting recently from real estate. I just don't understand that how can I get 6 to 8 to 10 calls in a day which are spam and not related with my work. So that was the thought, if anybody could comment on that. And how do we prevent it?
Anybody?
Yes, you're right. Data Protection Act tries to, see how you limit the access to data, but today the reality of life is the data need not be shared only by going in and filling in a form on a web page or something. That's all that is gone. I mean, how often you could just be chatting on some very rare topic, maybe NBA, basketball, or something like that, completely offbeat topic, and then find 10 minutes later something on your phone that talks about NBA. And you'll be
Yeah.
like, I was talking about something which is like so remotely off, and I suddenly found something on exactly the same topic. It's not a coincidence. Okay, everyone, the walls are listening. Everyone's listening. So the data need not be shared in the traditional way as it was in the past, and that's the reason why we need to be extra careful about how data goes out. So it doesn't go out just the old-fashioned way. It goes out in multiple ways.
Thank you. Thank you. I got your point.
Thank you very much. We have just exceeded the time now. So, but of course we could have gone on for more, but we have a constraint of time. But thank you very much for patiently listening to all of us, and thank you, my very esteemed and erudite panelists, for a very engaging conversation last 45 minutes. So with that, hopefully you would have realized something more which can be done from a data perspective, right? We can always take up the discussions after this. So we just have to wrap this up at the moment. Thank you very much.